Agenda item number 11, the FY20 Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission spending control limits. There's a T&E committee work session tentatively scheduled for October 11th, and this is a public hearing on that item. The process requires that the councils set annual ceilings on WSSC's new debt service, water and sewer operating expenses, and the maximum average rate increase. And anyone wishing to submit additional materials for our consideration should do so before the close of business on October 8th. And Mr. Brenny, is it Bren or Brenny? Brenny, you might need a program to recover from your WSSC testimonies, which we appreciate your willingness to continue to be a watchdog on this issue. And thank you. So you're up, Mr. Brenny.
Well, thank you, Hans. This marks the 20th anniversary of my involvement in WSSC cost control. Back in 1998, I teamed up with a number of other civic activists, and we created a program that actually brought costs under control for a few years. I'm here today representing the Taxpayers League, and I'd like to talk with you about the process that you all rely on to set rates. And I'm going to suggest some improvements, and those improvements we feel will avoid a taxpayer bailout, and it involves simply transferring the rate-making process to the PSC. Your process has failed repeatedly, and we offer the planned 6% rate increases over each of the next 4 years as Exhibit A. Our water rates are already among the highest in the area, double Fairfax's. It's no wonder we can't compete for economic development. WSSC's debt coverage ratio of 1 to, that's revenue over debt service costs, is perilously low. Just half of Moody's median value of 2, which Fairfax Water maintains. An economic downturn will trigger a sudden spending reduction because WSSC only has 90 days of cash reserves, compared to 1 year for Fairfax Water. Worse, the staff projects debt service costs to balance this budget on an arbitrary low 3.8% interest rate for new debt. That's less than this year's 5% and ignores the Federal Reserve plans to increase rates. If that didn't put you to sleep, this will. Our out-of-control operating and capital spending is to blame for WSSC's high rates and weak financial condition. Why? WSSC is not governed by best practices, but rather by conflict avoidance between the two counties, each of whom have significant conflicts of interest of their own because of their role in selecting and advising management, and the commissioners. Also, the process is too rate-oriented. Growth doesn't pay for growth and is subsidized by ratepayers. System development charges and fees do not cover costs. New staff projections justify a 6% rate increase by balancing the budget with unspecified revenue transfers, credits, unspecified cost reductions for the first time in the history of this process. I'm going to jump to the bottom line. Rate reviews should be performed by the Public Service Commission, as they do for every other water utility in the state. This would allow the ridiculous default budget provision to be dropped. That's the one that says WSSC gets its proposed budget if the two counties don't agree on rates. The two counties would rely on the PSC to make a fair determination of reasonable rates based on objective criteria for operating costs and capital improvements, not the judgment of county staff, who have little water utility experience. WSSC would then be incentivized to implement stronger spending controls. That's about all I have. I'm certainly welcome to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brenny. You've put your finger on some important issues there, and you know, it has the process that we have is something that deserves to be asked. Why is it that way? And so it seems like something we ought to give some thought to. So, Mr. Elrich.
I'll just be quick. Do you have written down a deeper analysis of what their problems are and how they got there? Because just simply controlling their budget wouldn't solve any of the problems you illuminated, let alone the problem of breaking infrastructure that needs to be replaced. So I'd be interested if you could send some stuff, you know, our way.
Yeah, we testified on this about 4 weeks ago before the commission and provided a great deal of detail. Your point is, I think that there's a horrendous legacy cost to all of the capital spending that's gone on over the years. And it's accelerated within the last 10 years, pushing our capital reserve to about 40% of all spending. That's the debt service cost. That's a point where if you spend any more on major projects, you're not going to get your rating from the underwriting organizations, and your interest costs are going to go up. We're walking a tightrope. If the economy turns down, it's not just that bills aren't going to be paid because of that 90-day cash surplus. We're going to have to cancel a lot of projects. And I just don't see any contingency plans in the capital plan, the 5-year, 6-year, 10-year, to address that. And the amazing thing is, yeah, we have an old infrastructure, but I bring to your attention that we have a 16% water loss rate. That's unbilled or leaked water before it even reaches the revenue-paying customer. So that's water we process that we don't generate any revenue on. On the other side, on the sewage side, 40% of all sewage processed is from infiltration or inflows. Didn't come from somebody's toilet or washing machine. And that doesn't generate revenue either. So we have an extremely archaic infrastructure, and we're trying to hold it up with a very archaic process to determine what rates should be. We need an independent determination to keep this organization alive. Thank you for the question.
All right. Thank you very much.